The divorce rate in the United States just keeps getting higher. There's something on here
Okay,
that
it's
we
here.
need to take off. Anyway, it keeps getting higher. It was in first marriages, there's 35 to 50% of divorces. I mean, that's high. And then in second marriages, it is up as high as 60 to 70%. I hope that is not right. I hope that that is a false statement, but apparently I looked it up and that's what I got. So it sounds like there's trouble in marriages. And what I think is that people get out premature. What I recommend to people and what I was taught is stay, if you're in a marriage and unless it's in a very abusive marriage or abusive at all, what I always say is stay until you can stay and become different. Learn from the one that brought you to the dance. If when you get that dance down, you'll be able to go and dance with other people. If you get out of that marriage prematurely, what will happen is you will go find, and research has shown this over and over, if we don't learn what we need to learn about ourselves, not so much the other person, but about ourselves, if we don't learn about ourselves out of that relationship, if we get out premature, we'll go find the same. They may look different, they may sound different, but we're going to get the same. We teach people how to treat us, so we will find the same thing. Regardless of, what, I think of Elizabeth Taylor, she was married 8 times, and, and there's others. I have a friend that can't get married again in the state of Texas because she's been married 8 times. You can't get married more than 8 times in the state of Texas. And so I'm really big on encouraging couples. It's not that I'm totally against divorce. I'm not, but I don't encourage divorce for the first solution to a coupleship's problems. Because, like I said, you're going to go recreate the same thing somewhere else. So why not learn about yourself from the one that brought you to the dance? The one that you are married to. So stay until you can become comfortable with yourself. And it doesn't mean that you have to stay in a marriage where you're not getting your needs met, but stay until both parties can leave in the mutual respect stage, particularly if there's children involved. Where there's children involved, do the work before the divorce. Stay in toe to toe, nose to nose, and duke it out with professional help, not by yourself, but with professional help. And stay in that coupleship until you can leave in that mutual respect stage. Because if you have children, you're going to be together forever. You're going to be together. When those adult children start having babies, you're going to be standing at that nursery together, looking through there at those babies, and if you're not speaking, and if you're, have never worked through the pain of the divorce and all of that is going to be recreated there with your adult children. So I'm going to give you a couple of successes that, people do divorce, regardless of whether I want them to or not, they divorce. I worked with the couple for 1 year. I'm not going to give you their name, but she said I gave me permission to share this. 1 year I worked with her and her husband, delightful people, wonderful people. And what happened is that they had been junior high sweethearts, high school sweethearts, college sweethearts, on and on and on. And I worked with them, hoping that they would stay together. The husband wanted to. And finally, one day, the wife said, Tenny, I think you love him more than I do. Once you divorce your husband and marry him, I don't want to be married to him. I love him, but not the way that I want to be married. And I said, okay, we're done here. 1 year, I get it. Y'all are ready for divorce. Now, what is good about that is they have remained friends. And another thing that's good about that is his wife, who they've been married for years and years and years, they're best friends. Now, that's what happens when adults can really get their stuff out of the middle, deal, individually with their feelings, with good therapy, and then come together as a couple and deal with it, whether they stay together or leave. But one of the things that I show couples all the time is, and this is what happens to couples. So you'll see this. Can you see this? I drew a rectangle. Can you see it? Anyway, it's a rectangle right there. And inside that, it's all enclosed. It says marriage. A marriage is in a, you can put it in a box or a circle, it doesn't matter. But the marriage in any family is the most, that is the most important relationship. And what happens, I have arrows going out of this marriage. And what these arrows represent is the energy that drains out of the marriage. What takes you out of the marriage? And it can look so innocent, but it drains the marriage. And the most important two people in a family, little kids, grown kids, grandkids, regardless, is the coupleship. Those are the two most important people in a marriage and in a relationship. So the things that can drain the energy out of a marriage, I'm going to go over some of them, but it's like it zaps the energy. You got the idea? How it zaps, it drains the energy out of the coupleship. All right, so I want to give you some ideas of what drains the energy out and what really causes divorce is what people divorce over. But this, instead of working on these things and, looking at the exits, what's, draining the energy out and bring it back into the coupleship, these are the things that people divorce over. And then I've heard people remarrying. I've heard about people regretting the divorce. And so one thing, the reasons for divorce, and it will drain the energy out of a marriage quicker than anything, and that's the lack of commitment. The lack of commitment. If you're not committed to your partner, regardless of or no matter what, that drains energy out of the coupleship. And, I was my husband's third wife. He was my second husband. And I hung in like a bulldog, I wasn't about to leave. And we went through a lot together. He went through, my severe, I call it mental illness, my eating disorder, and my rage. I went, through his alcoholism with him. But the difference is we got help. We got individual help. And you can't get help for the couple until you get individual help. So, each couple each partner in the coupleship must get their own help and then come back in the coupleship. But a lack of commitment, and threatening to divorce. threatening to divorce is lack of commitment. Uh, a commitment is I'm here regardless of or no matter what, and we're going to work through whatever comes up. Now, I want to say sometimes when there is physical violence, what I tell people is get out. And it's not always the wife. It's not always the husband that's the violent one. It can be either one. We think of and that's on down here, domestic violence. We always think of that, I don't know always, but we think of it being the husband that creates the domestic violence. I was the violent one in our coupleship. I'm not proud of that. My husband was a quiet man. He was. That was part of the problem. He was too quiet. My father was a rager. He was violent, and I picked up my father's rage and the violence. And I know I was capable of killing my husband. By the grace of God, I didn't, and I got help. My husband got help. But we had a lot. We have a story, and we were married 51 years. But we both got help together. Okay, so a lack of commitment. And then number 2 is infidelity. And people go outside of the marriage for different reasons. And sometimes they go outside of the marriage for some of the reasons I'm going to mention here. But infidelity is, it's a big one. It takes a lot of energy out of the marriage. And I do want to say, the one that has the affair, it's really, and it's hard for people to hear this, it really doesn't have anything to do with the other partner. They can love their spouse and still have an affair. And I know that might sound crazy, but they're going a lot of times, they go, a lot of times men will have an affair for the sex. Women have the affair for the affection, the attention, trying to recreate maybe what they didn't get in their younger life. But infidelity is a big one. Another one is conflict and arguing can cause a divorce. And people usually argue about sex or money. And there's either too much or too little, either way. But that arguing, conflict, always a turmoil. Another one is number 4 is marrying too young. When people marry too young, maybe they, like this couple I was talking about, they've been sweethearts since they were in grade school and junior high and high school. And sometimes both parties will outgrow each other, or one party will outgrow the marriage. Or, if they don't grow together, are you hearing me? If they don't keep that marriage alive and grow together, they can grow apart. So marrying too young and feeling like there's something missing, I missed something. And then financial reasons. Financial reasons, I've mentioned them twice, but that can be a big deal. That can be a really big deal. The pressure of finances, little money, hardships, or too much money, either way. But it's usually shortage of money, and we can come up, and this next one will be what I'm talking about. The number 6 is substance abuse. So the financial reasons can be one party, and it's not always the woman. It can be the one. Can be compulsive spenders, compulsive debting. And when one party has constant spending too much money, that can cause problems within the relationship. And then, and that is a form of, can be an addiction. But number 6 is substance abuse. And I'll tell you, some of the healthiest marriages that I know of is where one is alcoholic and the other one is a non-alcoholic, or one of them has an eating disorder and the other one, or both of them are alcoholic. But if both get help, that can be some of the strongest marriages that I've ever seen. So just because there's substance abuse there, if it's treated, that's why I just really, really encourage people. You know, we've had them come in, bring their spouse into treatment while they're on their way to the lawyer's office to file for divorce, and almost beg them, don't do it, don't do it. Let's see what you've got. Did you, and what I tell couples, if there is a smidgen of love left, if there is a smidgen of romance left, that's enough to build on. And so I really encourage couples, do not get a divorce don't even think about it for at least a year. You know, give the spouse, unless there is physical domestic violence, then get out, be safe, and get your children safe. So substance abuse can play a big part, because it is, those of you that have been here, you can, it's, I always take a black pillow and have people to hold it up in front of them. And that when you are in a substance, you are blocking off any interaction with another person. They can't get to you emotionally or physically a lot of times. They can't get through to you because that substance is the most important thing in their life. And until they get help with the substance, they are not capable of having a relationship. They cannot be there for the other person because they can't see beyond their addiction. And so, I'll tell you, I know I would get so mad at my husband, I would threaten divorce. He'd be gone 3 or 4 days, and, well, I'd threaten to leave. That's another thing, is to quit threatening. If you're going to do it, but quit threatening. But that substance abuse is a big deal. And remember that it is a disease. It's not they're not weak-willed, or we are, those of us with addictions. We're not bad people needing to get good. We're sick needing to get well. And sometimes the spouse of an alcoholic, drug addict, you name the disease. Let's talk mainly about alcoholism and drug addiction. A lot of times, a spouse will get as sick, if not sicker, than the addict does. And that's why I say get help. Get help. Because if that spouse leaves their addict husband or wife, that's what they're used to. And they're going to go out and find somebody else that they can try to sober up. And they don't do that intentionally. They may get in a relationship with someone that doesn't even drink while they're dating, but you mark it down. They're going to find them another addict, because they cannot live without trying to help somebody. That's what the spouse does. And then they blame it all on the addict. And you go back and look, majority of when you have substance abuse and then the spouse, and this is not all the time, but there's a high percentage of them that one or both will be adult children of alcoholics. And so they've recreated their history. And until both parties can get well, this is where there's no hope for them to have a healthy relationship with anybody, as far as a spouse. And that's why I encourage people, stay until you can become different. When you get healthy and whole within yourself and can stand tall, autonomous with the God of your understanding, you'll be free to either stay and work through this relationship, or you'll be free to leave. But if you leave prematurely, you're going to go out there and try to find something to replace what you left. So I get to preaching on this sometime. And then, domestic violence. Of course, domestic violence can be. And, I've worked with a lot of women that have, I say a lot, I don't as much anymore, but are in the early years ago, before there were women's centers. And by the way, I had the opportunity last week to go to East Tennessee and do a workshop, 2-day workshops called Blue Monarch. Wonderful place, and they can take 16 women, but they provide long-term care for women and their children, for alcoholic women and drug addict women. And it was such a pleasure to sit there through those 2 days and watch those women. They were beautiful, they were dressed nice, the children were dressed nice, and when I heard some of their stories, they were horrendous places where they came from and came out of. So anyone can recover, but we all in some time need a little help or a lot of help. So anyway, I just wanted to say what a joy that was to be there. And yes, I heard that not everyone stays, but I heard about lots of miracles through that little center. So, and the thing that they wanted me to come in and talk with them about is eating disorders, because they know a lot about drugs and alcohol, but they didn't know about eating disorders, and they were having women come in with eating disorders and not knowing how to treat them. So I admire them for, reaching out for some help instead of trying to, do it themselves. So anyway, hope that we help them. Anyway, number 8, the last one here, is lack of family. This can cause conflict with the couple, or too much family, too little or not enough. Too little family is where you do not have the support. And it can work a different way. My mother and dad were very sick people in their own addictions. My husband's family, mom and dad, were not supportive. I was his third wife, and they kept wanting him to go back to his first wife. That's a whole different story. But anyway, we had little support. We had no support. No, zero support from grandparents. My children didn't have grandparents, active grandparents, and so, but it kind of worked reverse with us because it drew us closer together. We had to depend on each other because there wasn't anybody in the wings, Now what we did is we had good friends, and then after we got into, I always had a group of friends. 3 to 5 people is all you need. 3 to 5 people who love you and care about you, and you can love and care about them. You don't have to have 20, 30, 3 to 5 people who know everything about you and love you anyway. So we had good friends. And then when we both got in the program, then we had a fellowship that grew up around us. So, but it does help if you have family. And sometimes you can have too much family involvement if they get in your business, and this is one of the things that, as a mother-in-law, that I have done my best, and I think I've done a good job at it. I would never go to one of my children's or grown grandchildren's homes without an invitation. I don't do that. I don't just knock on the door and assume that they want me to be there. I don't. And so consequently, we live all grouped up here together, within a mile of each other or less. But we all know how to set healthy boundaries. And, we can either be together as a family or we can be apart in our own homes, So you can have too little family or too much family. And so it's all about setting boundaries. If you have too little, Find you a family of choice, like I was talking about. All right, so, all right, you've done everything you know to do, and there's still going to be a divorce. You've done everything. You've gone to therapy. He's gone to therapy, hopefully, or maybe not. But anyway, I want to talk to you a little bit about going through a divorce, if that happens. And that's not the end of life. That is not the end of life. My son and his wife have 2 daughters, and they, for whatever reasons, none of my business, but they chose many years ago to divorce. And they have remained very good friends. They celebrate every holiday together. They travel with those kids together. I keep joking with them. I keep wanting to plan their next wedding, but it is a joke. Anyway, they have done that. Several people having relationship, mainly for their kids, because now they have grandkids. And it really, I have sat back and watched them, and they're pretty much of a model of how a divorced couple can be with their children and grandchildren, and and their past friends and all. Okay, so the number one thing, if you are getting a divorce, or it's coming to that, is don't be too hard on yourself. If you're feeling guilt and shame about your marriage ending, remember it takes 2 people. Don't carry all the blame, because this is a no blame game. Something happened that made the other person decide they don't want to be married. And so 2 people cause the divorce, but 2 people can either end it or they can repair it. I'm all for repairing. Number 2 is, like I just said, find a support system. If you're going through a divorce, you need a support system more than you ever have. And sometimes in some coupleships, they become so isolated in that coupleship, they don't have friends. And that can be part of the problem, that one partner gets tired of having that just, where one partner doesn't want the other one to go outside to do anything. I'll tell you what a happy marriage looks like, is where 2 people stand tall, autonomous, with the God of their understanding. When you get 2 healthy people that are standing tall with God, and they can take care of themselves in every way, that they don't have to be with someone, that they can live without having to be with someone, they're ready for a relationship. Because they're not going in there to get something. They're going in there to give, and it can be a give and take, and a give and take. But this is where when people marry too young, and it's usually invariably the woman, when they marry too young, maybe she doesn't get an education, maybe she stays home and takes care of the kids, whatever. It forms this dependency. And many times in this type of marriage, the husband wants her dependent. A lot of times the husband can be very controlling, particularly if you have married a narcissist. This is down on my list, but if you've married a narcissist, this is that dependent, and they do not want you to go out of that coupleship. They do not want you to work. They want you to stay home. And it can be a very controlling type of relationship. And this is usually husband to wife. We don't see this much with the wife. It can be the wife controlling the husband, but it's usually the husband that overpowers the wife and forms that dependency. So there's no shame and guilt for ending a marriage. You just must find a support, find friends, family. Now this family deal, the families a lot of times will divide up and conquer. They'll take sides. The best of your ability, stay out of that, particularly if there's adult children involved. Don't make your children have to, choose sides. And number three is make time for self care. This is going to be a hard time in your life and going through a divorce. So make time to take care of yourself. Um, and number four, look for divorce counseling and go to someone that understands, go to a marriage and family therapist or talk to your friends that have gone to, for marriage counseling. This is not marriage counseling. This is individual. Go to someone that understands divorce and that can help you walk through it and come out whole on the other side. Number five, discover new interest and new hobbies. And this doesn't mean another spouse. This doesn't mean going and finding you another sweet thing. That's what a lot of people want to do. Well, I'm just going to go find. Don't do that. Do not do that. Give yourself time to get to know who you are. Learn to stand tall, autonomous with God and your friends. And, give yourself at least a year before you start dating. This is me. This is just me. Do not get out there because you're going to think, oh, another relationship, that's what I need. You're going to find the same kind. If you're going to find somebody that will date someone that's married or someone that's divorced, your picker is broke. Why would they want to be with you? So build you a good support group and discover new interests and hobbies. You might want to go back to school. You might want to get a career. You might want to change careers. Take care of your body, exercise, do all of that self-care, and get out of bed. A lot of times people, particularly women, and I guess some men, the depression will hit, the sadness will hit. They'll want to get the bed, cover up their head, and not see anybody. Get yourself out of that bed. Suit up, show up, go do something for somebody else. I was talking to a woman yesterday at the nail shop she's not as old as I am. There's not many people around as old as I am, but anyway, there are. But there was. She was an older woman, and she was talking about the day before her and her husband had gone to deliver Meals on Wheels. And they just begged for them here in our part of the country, somebody to come and deliver Meals on Wheels to the elderly, to the shut-ins. Do something like that. Get out of yourself for just a little while and go do something for someone else. Go volunteer at a women's center. We've got a wonderful one here, and they're always needing help. Go volunteer up there. Like I said, discover new interests, new hobbies. And number six, avoid conflict with your spouse or former spouse. While this may be difficult, avoid the conflict, especially if you're divorcing a narcissist. Now, if you're married to a narcissist, you must at all cost because they love conflict. A narcissist feeds off of conflict. And if you're going to help them have that conflict, you need to go talk to your therapist about that because you're worse than the narcissist is. Stay out of that. Stay out of that because you're not going to win. There is no winner when you're dealing with the narcissist. You're not going to win an argument. So be gracious. Walk away. Like Jesus used to, shake the dust off your sandals and turn your positive side to their negative side and walk away. Walk away. Don't get into that conflict because they thrive on it. They love it. And remind yourself that conflict isn't going to do either one of you any good. It's not. That fussing and fighting. Remember, take deep breaths. Like I said, again, walk away when you need to. And above all, refuse to let yourself or your ex create more drama and trigger strong emotions in each other. You've had enough. You've had enough of the drama, and don't create any more to put in that basket. Treat each other as much as you can with some love, dignity, and respect. Because if you spent years with that person, you had to have had some love for that person. See if you can conjure up some love for them, not so much as a spouse, but just as a human being. Think of the things that drew you to that person. Thinking, now, this is going to be hard, but think positive. Think positive. It can be difficult to think positive when you're going through probably one of the hardest things in your life. But see, train your brain. The brain can switch from positive to negative. And stay out of the past. It's not going to help you at all. You're just going to get sad. You're going to get mad. You're going to, think positive of what you might do in an hour, what you might do this evening. Call a friend, call a family member, invite them out to dinner, invite someone to go for a walk. Get out of yourself long enough to train your brain to get out of the negative and into more positive. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Divorce does not have to be the end of the world. And then number 8, self-reflect. It's going to be important for you to look at the negative and the positive aspects of you. What part did you play in this? It does not matter what part they played. You're not going to be able to change them. You haven't. If you've been married 30 years, you had 30 years to change. And if they haven't changed, give it up. Change yourself. Change yourself. And look at what part that you've played in that, and look at your own negativity and the positive part about yourself. Look for the good in yourself. And this is where I talk about doing affirmations, because a lot of times in divorce, and I think and men and women, but women are more feelers than men. We all know that. And women particularly get so down on themselves. And this is where affirmations will help you, whether you believe them or not. Write 50 positive affirmations. 50 short, little positive affirmations. You're loving, you're kind, you're beautiful, you have beautiful hair, you have beautiful hands, you're a good mother, 50. And look in the dark part of your eye in a mirror 5 times a day and read those affirmations to yourself. If you really want to train your brain to change, do this. 5 times a day, look in the mirror and read those 50 affirmations. You do that for 2 weeks and report back and see if anything has changed. Affirmations work. Our brain is the most magnificent computer God ever made. And you put good stuff in there and you keep putting it in there, it's going to come out. You keep filling it up with the negative stuff, that's what's going to come out. The thing about putting in a lot of negative stuff and keeping it in there, rolling it around in your head, you're going to break out in stress-related illnesses. I've seen people that get divorced and their bodies absolutely go to hell in a handbasket because they hold all of that stuff in. And they'll break down in arthritis, they'll break down in overeating, undereating, stress-related illnesses, a lot of joint problems, stomach problems, you name it. This is why during a divorce you must take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Don't forget that there is a God. And invite him into that divorce. And if your spouse, if y'all believe in God, do it. If you're going to get a divorce, invite God into the divorce, the two of you together. So another thing is what ways can you grow through this? How can you get better? What have you learned about yourself in your relationship that you won't repeat in the next relationship? If you don't learn about yourself, you will repeat it. Can you hear me? If you don't learn what your part in that relationship, you'll take it to the next one. And then look at, do you have any regrets about your part in that? Do you have any regrets? And if you do, how can you be different in the next relationship? If you regret some of your behavior, how can you be different in the next relationship? And then if you do have a lot of regrets about your marriage, do you need to make amends? Do you need to make amends for your part? And that's a tricky deal. This is where I love working with people in a 12-step program, because you've got the basics for relationships, and to work with someone that doesn't have that knowledge of looking at yourself and seeing the part that you've played and talking about your part and being willing to go make amends and all. It's a little different working with what I call normies, because you have to teach them these things. And where the steps are built in, I'm not saying people in a 12-step program don't get divorced, but they have a planned program of action to go through it, to look at themselves. And then another thing is, are you holding on to resentments? Resentment, you break it down, S-E-N-T means centeri, is a Greek word called centeri, which means to feel. That's all resentment is. And R-E is a prefix. It means to repeat. R-E means to repeat. So all a resentment is to repeat the feeling. When you have a resentment, you get up in the morning and you repeat the feeling over and over, what he's done to you or what she's done to you, and it just thrives, and you feed it and maybe talk to somebody else and moan and groan about it. Get off of the resentment, work through it, or that's what will kill you. It will not hurt the other person. It will go inward and eat you up from the inside out. Stomach ulcers, I've already gone through a lot of them. So if you're holding on to resentment, figure out a way, work with someone. If you had a sponsor, you'd go to that sponsor and y'all work through that together. And one of the things, you might start remembering the good things that came out of your marriage. What did you learn from that marriage? Replace that resentment with thankfulness. What did you learn about yourself in that marriage? What did you learn? What did your partner teach you? There's some good stuff. You're not an idiot. If you didn't get something good out of that, you wouldn't have stayed. You might wind up with some marvelous children. You might wind up with a beautiful home. It might be, not material things, but, maybe your spouse, helped you with your self-esteem, or you helped them. See what's the good things that came out of that marriage, and focus on that. And then simplify legal matters. Okay, you're going to get a divorce. Simplify those legal matters when possible, and if at all possible, while going through the divorce proceedings, use mediation. Get a good mediator that can hear both sides, and you'll have a lawyer, they'll have a lawyer, but get a good neutral mediator. Pay that mediator for mediation, It can save you time, it can save you money, and a lot of stress, heartache, and frustration. Where if you just got his lawyer, her lawyer, uh, I mean, they're gonna clock a lot of hours. If you go to mediation pretty quick, you pay that mediator, and you'll have your lawyer in there, he'll have his, the mediator will come in, present, this is da da da, they'll go out, you make the decision. It'll be done in a day. Take care of yourself. Don't spend all of your money on lawyers. I mean, lawyers are good. I'm not against it. But they can bill a lot of hours in these divorces, especially if there's any money involved. So use your heads. If you're going to get a divorce, okay, let's do it, but let's do it the way that we can have a mediator to help divide the property and the money and go down the road and still care about each other. Okay, there again, see a good therapist that specializes in divorce. And then the last thing, go through the grief process. You are losing something. It is much easier. And I've talked to a lot of widows. It is much easier to lose someone in death than to lose them in a divorce. Because in death, when someone dies, when my husband passed away, I knew he loved me dearly. I knew he did. And I will keep that in my heart forever. I loved him, he loved me. It was rough for a while, but we made it through, so he died knowing, I knew that he loved me. But in divorce, that's the sad part, is that, so go through the, because you're going to go through it whether you want to or not. And it's, really good to know what those steps are. It's the same with grief, because you're going to grieve. And it's whenever there's a loss, there's a grief process. And that process is denying. I think we can work it out. We're not going to get a divorce. Well, we're past that. We're already at the mediation. And then bargaining, get past the bargaining. We bargain with God. God, let this, pass from me. I don't want to go through it. And then anger, feel anger, stuff your foot. It's okay to have that anger. Get it out instead of holding it in your stomach. Keeps you from having stomach problems. But do this. This is why one of the things, and I want to speak to our intensive. That's what we do in the intensive. We help people go through the grief process for whatever losses that they have. Come do an intensive. That would be one of the best things you could do in order to go through this grief process. Then after you get angry, the depression is going to set in. If there's pain, take care of yourself during this. We call that the dark night of the soul. It hurts to get a divorce. It hurts. It hurts to watch your kids go through it, regardless of their age. And the best thing, if those adult kids can stay out of this divorce and you don't partner up and divide those kids, you're doing a detriment to your grown adult kids if y'all divide up those kids and one's for you and one's for your, don't do that. Don't put those kids in that situation. So pain and depression, go through it, learn through that dark night of the soul. And when it hurts so bad, you're going to wake up some morning and say, I'm done. I surrender. I've done all I can do. I'm giving it up. And then you're going to be at a place of acceptance. And acceptance is, I might not like it, but it is what it is. And I am at a place of acceptance. And you're ready to hold your head up and your shoulders back and go into the world, but don't go in there dating. Go in there with your friends and find a good life. All right, I've taken up there the whole time, but hopefully it helps someone. Anybody have any questions? Any of you ever been through a divorce? that you would like to talk about? Was it hard?